You're tuned to KFUGLP, Crescent City, 101.1 on your FM radio dial worldwide on the internet, kfugradio.org. This is Community Service. I'm Mike Thornton, sitting in for Paul for the moment, and we are joined by Alex Lemus of Renewable Energy Capital. Alex, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Let me get you to bring that mic a little bit closer. And so, lots of things have been going on, and for our listeners who may not remember, Alex Lemus and Renewable Energy Capital have the contract for redeveloping the Crescent City Harbor. Part of that redevelopment project and process has to do with 2 RV parks that are located there. And another part of that issue is that there have been a number of people living in those RV parks for quite some time, years in some cases, and their ability to relocate is seriously limited, and Alex has been working with the residents to try to come up with some solutions. First off, Alex, thank you for being with us on the show this morning. Really appreciate it. Let's talk about where things stand with the redevelopment of the harbor. Then we can also talk about particularly these 2 RV parks. And then I'd like to get into some issues about affordable housing in the community, as well as labor needed to do all of the work that's going to be going on at the harbor.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it. So from the harbor's perspective and the redevelopment, yes, we've signed the leases now to move forward. The first one that we're starting to work on is the old overflow lot, which is the lot behind Jambalaya House. So that's been dormant for quite a while. So we're in the process of improving that. We're going to make it a nice little private lot. We're going to put fencing, a redwood fencing all around all of it. We're going to grade it. We're in the process right now of demolishing the old bathroom, which has asbestos in it. We're also going to demolish the 2 old buildings that are in front of Jambalaya House. So those will be removed. And then from there, we can grade it, finish it, and hopefully make it available for people to start using. So that'll be the first one that we actually do something with.
And so the goal is to make this usable for people this summer. Is that the case?
That was originally our goal, but as I shared with you, we're struggling to find people to come do work, materials, everything. But that's our hope, yes. That's what we're hoping for.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that, because we did talk about labor needed for these projects, and that it's challenging to find people to be able to do it. So why is that?
So that's a really good question. I've heard that from a lot of people, but now that we're actually in the process of hiring people, it is really, really tough. And then even the ability to bring people in from surrounding areas has become exponentially more difficult because of gas. So now people look at it and say, hey, how far do I have to drive? Because I've met people here who used to come here from the Bay Area to work. Now they won't. It costs too much money. So we're really struggling. In fact, what we're looking at right now, the company that's actually going to put in the fence all around it, we're actually bringing them up from San Diego. And the only reason we were able to get them to come up is they really like surfing and they really like Crescent City. That's how we got them to come.
So it's a unique compensation package.
It was a very unique package, but it was extremely difficult. Same thing with the materials.
Well, let me ask this. Is part of the problem, though, that I want to say this the way I mean it, that we don't have a homegrown workforce that has the skills necessary to be able to do these jobs? Or is it just that we have so much employment here that nobody's available to work?
I'm glad you said that. I think it's really the former. And when we put the solar project up at the harbor, that was the other issue that we found. It was hard to find certain labor to come in and do work, like pick this up, clean this up, just basic work. Even when we spoke to Home Depot in San Diego, they were like, oh, no problem, we'll do this, this, and this. We'll call the Crescent City Home Depot. They always have a list of preferred contractors. They said there are none. We just can't get people to do it. And we found it with electricians. We're lucky we found a really good electrician that was referred to us, but it's hard to find certain skilled labor here.
So, and I realize this isn't your area of expertise per se, or maybe it is. It really sounds to me like a community like this would do really well if we invested heavily in some kind of vocational training for these skilled trades, because sounds like we desperately need them. I mean,
I agree with you 100%. It's something that we've been doing in a lot of our economic development projects. I think college is great for a lot of people, right? Higher education is wonderful, but for a lot of people, there is no vocational training. There should be an opportunity for people to come out of high school, get a job, good paying job, and go to work. I think Del Norte County is doing something, or the high school is doing something now where they're training the kids to build these little tiny homes.
Yeah, they're having an auction, I think, if they didn't have it already. They built one and they're going to be building others.
See, now that I would get behind a lot. In fact, I would buy their unit because we want to put some on the harbor. But I think it's exciting that they're actually doing that, because now they come out, they have a skill set. So I think vocational training is very, very important.
Well, I don't know. Did you know if the auction took place or not yet?
Yes.
Oh, it did. That's too bad, because then you could have went and outbid everybody.
I wanted somebody else to get it in. If they didn't get it, then I would.
Well, they're right. Then maybe you can just buy it from them.
Right. But I thought that was exciting that they did that, because there is so much demand for those tiny homes right now. And now that they built one, they can build another, and now you have a job.
Right.
Right, just like solar, there's a lot of people that come in and get an internship, and after they've done one or two, now you can get hired.
Right.
It's
No,
the
it
first
sounds
job,
like
it's always the hardest. That's why I tell you that I'm a big fan of internships and giving young people opportunity to see if they can do this, or they have an aptitude or an interest.
Sounds like a great opportunity to do that. And perhaps our local education system will take all of this to heart and move forward with creating some viable vocational training in this community. We're joined by Alex Lemus of Renewable Energy Capital. You are tuned to KFUGLP Crescent City. This is community service. So, Alex, we're talking about the harbor. We can talk about some of the long-term plans for the harbor, but let's talk about the RV parks and what's going on with that. Where do things stand with trying to address the needs of these, in many cases, very poor residents? Where do things stand with trying to make sure that they have a viable place to live during, and perhaps, after the time comes for many of them, if not all of them, to move on?
So the first thing that we've done, and I told everybody this, is that once we signed the agreements with the harbor, that we would, as we did our due diligence to find out what needed to be done, that everybody could stay. Nobody was going to have any increases. And then once we took over after the due diligence period, then we would give everybody 1 year, no eviction, no increases, so people could take a deep breath and not have to worry, where am I going to go next month? So that could easily be 15, 18 months.
So that's been made clear to all of these
Yes.
residents. They are clear on what
And I'm going
that
to also give
proposal is.
everybody, because I've got an updated list from Tim, I'm going to give everybody a letter in writing. So they got it in writing with my John Hancock.
We'll talk about. I raised another issue with you off mic, but I want to save that for
Okay.
perhaps later. One of the things that is increasingly clear, and I think it's been clear to people who live here for a long time, is becoming increasingly clear as time goes on, is the issue of affordable housing. My understanding is that in addition to the work and redevelopment at the harbor that you're involved in, that you have been actively pursuing the possibility of constructing affordable and or workforce housing in the community, or facilitating that development.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
So we've been looking at a lot of different opportunities, been meeting with a lot of people to try to find either land that's already permitted that we could work with the county on, and or buying properties that are existing that we could redevelop, and yes, focus on affordable housing, seniors, veterans, etc. Because having been at the harbor for a while, that's really the majority of the long-term residents. So that's what we want to focus on and see what we can do to help address that issue.
Well, and this isn't just about low income residents. It's also about many people who are making a fairly decent living, but still can't afford to find a place to live in this community, either because they don't exist at all or because much of the existing housing stock in this community is actually taken up by Airbnbs and other type of vacation rentals. Is that correct?
That's what my research shows. And when we did the research on how many of the vacation rentals there are, it is a very, very large percentage of the housing stock. So when you look, all you have to do is go on VBRO, Airbnb. You can see how many vacation rentals there are. Go try to find one rental. They don't exist. So the revenue is the problem, because you make double or triple on vacation rental and you get paid up front. So that's why everybody converts over. Is it's a lot more profitable, but it ends up impacting the entire community because there is no rental housing, period.
So I don't know if this is the case here, because I guess I've always thought of, kind of that vacation rental issue. I mean, I've been in other tourist communities where it's been this bad and in some cases worse. And I've always thought of those for the most part as being locally owned and or converted. But it sounds to me that actually there's a lot of speculative capital that is coming into communities and buying these things up. I mean, is that true, or am I wrong about that?
I think you're right on. And what I see is a lot of rotation of capital from the San Diego, LA, San Francisco, who have large profits, and then they're rolling over into other properties. So you're absolutely right. They're absentee owners. They don't live here.
So this is going to take... That's a whole nother issue. Some people are beginning to talk about it a little bit more consistently and openly, perhaps, than in the past. And then at the same time, of course, some of the people who actually are community leaders, the Del Norte gentry, for lack of a better term at the moment, are actually some of the people who own these, including at least one sitting member of the County Board of Supervisors, which tends to make me think that maybe addressing that facet of this problem might be challenging.
Well, it is, but this is not exclusive to Del Norte and Crescent City. We're dealing with the same issue in San Diego. In fact, San Diego, after 5 years of this issue, has worked now with the Coastal Commission, and they're going to dramatically reduce the number of vacation rentals, because the problem are not the vacation rentals on the water, right, big units. That's not where most people are going to rent a home. It's that they've now gone into traditional neighborhoods, and in my opinion, these are all violations of the zoning laws. That's really what it is. So residential neighborhoods are being converted into mini hotels, and so that has taken units off, now drives up rents, but it's really not what a lot of people signed up for. That's really what it is. So now that San Diego and the Coastal Commission have come up with that ordinance, I think the rest of the state's going to use that as a template.
I'm interested in the interaction between the Coastal Commission and San Diego, and why this needed to be a joint thing, because either one of them, well, I don't know if the Coastal Commission has the ability to rezone anything, even in the coastal zone. Maybe they do.
They didn't didn't rezone it, but it was more of a mutually negotiated agreement on how many they're going to allow and where.
Okay.
So that's why the Coastal Commission was involved, because originally places like Mission Bay and Coronado had a lot of vacation rentals, but that's not where most families live. And that wouldn't be an issue if you only had them, for example, along Pebble Beach.
Sure.
The issue becomes when you take small homes in residential areas and you're earning triple the revenue. Well, of course you're not going to rent it out.
And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I know Del Norte County is in the process of updating its housing element as part of its general plan. Is that happening in San Diego too?
Yes.
Is that the impetus for addressing this?
Yes.
Because they're having to comply with these new, particularly ambitious standards coming out of Sacramento? I mean, is that part of what it is?
That's part of it. You're absolutely right about that. But it's the same things that are going on here. It's affordability, right? It's affordability. People can't live. They can't afford to pay what is necessary for the smallest units.
Right.
And the Airbnbs were not a problem when they were a small percentage of the market. But so many investors rolled in so much money that now it is a problem. It's just too big a percentage.
I guess where I'm going with this is that at some point it sounds like, whether for moral reasons, sounds stupid saying that at all, but also because the need to not be sued by the state. What's happening in San Diego is at some point probably going to be happening here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, once they did this, took 5 years. So it wasn't something that was done overnight. And there's a compromise because there's so many homes that are owned by investors, and they're just Airbnbs. So they've completely destroyed a lot of neighborhoods, unfortunately.
We're speaking with Alex Lemus of Renewable Energy Capital. You are tuned to KFUGLP Crescent City. I'm Mike Thornton. This is Community Service 1048 on this Monday morning. So, Alex, talk, if you will, about your exploration into the broader need and process for bringing about some more affordable housing in Crescent City and Del Norte County.
So we're looking at many, many options. We've been working with a lot of real estate brokers, land brokers. We've been looking at land that's already zoned. Then we run into the issue of, okay, this is zoned. By Walmart, there's a nice big property that's already zoned as a planned community that could work. Then the question is, how long would it take us to build it? And how does that address the short-term issue? So I'm looking at it short-term, intermediate, and long-term. I think there has to be a lot more housing, and it has to be affordable housing. And I think also a lot of the senior housing. There's a lot of veterans, as you well know, up here. I was amazed when I did the research as a percentage of the population, how many veterans are here. And I met several of them down at the harbor who'd stay there. So I think there has to be a lot more of that. So we've been meeting and talking with some of the groups in San Diego who do that and seeing what we could do to increase the stock. But I'm trying to balance out short-term, intermediate, and long-term, because some of these will take us, even if we started tomorrow, 2 years to build.
Right. So what does short-term look like in your conception of it?
The older I get, that number changes.
I can relate to that.
I would say through 6 months. I think 6 months is short-term, right? What can we do short-term? And so we were looking at some units where maybe we could put ADUs in the back, right? That would be relatively straightforward from a permitting perspective. It wouldn't be difficult. And then we just add on to what's there. Because one of the neat features about this area is a lot of the lots are pretty big relative to the house. So then you can go ahead and put an ADU in the back. That's already been approved, it's zoned, so that'd be straightforward. But that only adds one house.
Right.
One unit, and so that's, one. So
I just thought of this, so I might not say it very well. So there's been a lot of discussion, very little action on the topic of tiny home communities for people who are homeless, right, as transitional housing. Mm-hmm. But I also know there are communities where they do tiny home communities that are more market rate housing.
Yes.
So it would seem to me that there would be the ability to do something in between that.
Yes.
Emergency transitional housing for the very poor, market rate fancy tiny homes, but then something that might actually be more in the middle that could be workforce housing, but put a number of units on one lot.
Absolutely. And that's what we've been looking really carefully at, all the zoning in Del Norte. Where can we do that? Where can we add units? So we could address exactly that issue is, can we build some units that, you talk about transitional, but also as people get older and they live by themselves, they may not want 1,600 square feet or
Right.
2,000. Or I'm very comfortable with 500, 600, 700, and that's a manageable number for them. But if you if you do a layout in such a way that I've liked this when I've seen it, you build a little community, right? At least people feel like, okay, I got my neighbors, we got a little common area. I think that can be done, and it's just a matter of finding the land that's zoned properly and then being able to build them. And what we've been looking at is even buying these tiny homes somewhere else.
Right.
Like in Sacramento, there's quite a few of them. And the price at Sacramento, the FOB price, is very attractive. Not so much the landed price here because of the cost to bring them here. So that's where we're back and forth. Do you buy them somewhere else and then bring them here? Or do we try to build them here?
Right. Well, there's a proliferation of people building these tiny homes on wheels. I mean, I've looked at them.
There's a lot of
There's
them.
a lot of them, and they go from somewhat affordable to like, well, I could almost just buy a house for this.
I have the exact same feeling. I've looked at some of these and I thought, well, that's neat, but for that amount of money, I could buy a house.
Right. Right. And the other thing is, and this is just my own personal thing, is that a lot of them are based on these like bedrooms that are like loft bedrooms, and like those stairs are super steep or they're ladders. And I got to tell you, once you start getting to be an old guy, at least for me, that's really challenging.
The second floor is out.
Second floor's out.
And then you see
no
the
second floor.
The stairs are this wide,
Yes.
with no railing.
That's right.
I'm like, obviously
Exactly
somebody
that.
very young built that, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I agree with you 100%.
So let me ask you. I mean, clearly this is so the overall harbor development project. The last I heard was a $50 million project. My guess is it's going to be more than that, right? I mean, if it's 50 projected today.
That's another thing that's been shocking is we've gone out and priced things, and the numbers that we're getting quoted is just shocking. It really is. It's just eye-opening. A lot of the money that is involved in that 50 would be with respect to the harbor, the pier, the seawall, a lot of that. That's where a lot of the money is going to be spent. In fact, we're already looking at, once we demolish the two buildings on the corner there, is repairing that seawall that's in front of Jambalaya House all the way over to the old Albers, which is what, Safe Coast now, I believe? Yeah. We want to repair that, and then going all the way down. And some of the old numbers that we had, I agree with you, I would multiply them by a certain number to get there.
Well, and that work's all going to, I would think that work's all going to be very specialized types of construction, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, I mean, if you can't find somebody to build a fence here, I imagine it's going to be challenging to find somebody who can actually legally build a seawall.
Yes, and that's not something you hire, two guys in a truck from Home Depot to go build. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I asked about the cost of the harbor development, because, however many 50 million plus that's going to be, then you start getting into the issue of overall availability, construction of affordable housing throughout the Crescent City and somewhat into the Del Norte community. What kind of interaction and help have you been getting from city government, county government, those kinds of things?
To date, we have not reached out. What we wanted to do was have a lot more research done, first-hand knowledge, and then I wanted to go then with a specific plan. I don't want the county to say, what do you want from us, and not have an answer. I want to go in and say, here's what we're willing to do, here's what we propose, and here's how we'd like to see you contribute.
So, okay, that makes sense. You want to have a plan. And at the same time, I mean, it's not like people don't know that this is happening, right?
No, they don't.
So I guess my question is,
know.
how many of them have reached out to you?
The next one will be the first one.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess it's one of those things I'm not surprised, but there's a part of me I'm just going, come on. This is me saying this. This isn't you saying this. Come on. I know some of you listen. Dude's trying to do something. Be a really good idea if y'all helped. just saying that. So, Alex, what happens next? You talked about short-term, middle-term, long-term. Let's start with short-term, middle-term, long-term, and then we'll let you get on with your busy day.
So short-term, we want to complete the work on the old Redwood overflow lot, which now for us will be the South Beach RV Resort, and we want to make that available now to to visitors, because that's really what we want to focus on. And there's something there that I think is really important for everybody to remember. That is, by focusing on out-of-town visitors, there's a lot of tax revenue that'll be generated for the county that they're not generating today. So we think that'll be really important. Then once we complete that, then we want to start working on some of the infrastructure issues that we've identified in our due diligence. For example, some of the electrical work on the existing RV parks. We want to repair the bathrooms, other things like that. And so that's going to be our short kind of intermediate plan, while we hopefully can find options for the long-term residents in the community, but we know that's going to be challenging.
Oh, I guess the question immediately came to mind for me, and I don't want to be like Monday morning Debbie Downer, right? But with gas at like $6-7 a gallon, and a pending, and the inflation that we're seeing in general, and a pending recession, that makes me nervous about counting on tourism.
Fair enough.
Am I wrong about that?
Well, I don't know that it's going to go away. I could certainly see people taking fewer vacations, but for us, we look at this on a long-term basis, and I would agree with you. I'm a little nervous as well about the current economic environment. I see it in many places you go. Even when you go areas that are tourist areas, when you see people, they're walking around. They're not spending money inside the restaurants. Everybody's struggling, so I see that. But when we look out, hopefully the longer term, what we want to do is start bringing people to Crescent City. And if we figure if they're visiting, then they'll stay, they'll spend money at the harbor.
Right.
And by doing that, then other businesses will locate there, and that will generate a lot more revenue. We've really focused on increasing the revenue for the harbor and the county, and that is on the TOT taxes, and also in the harbor, getting more people to rent it. Well, they're only going to rent it, the space, if there's people spending money.
Sure.
So that's the kind of the chicken and the egg, and that's what we've been trying to address. Let's improve the area, let's fix it up a little bit, improve the bathrooms, sidewalk, let's put some fences, things like that. We also want to focus on security, because what we've read from a lot of people is that at night, anything that's not bolted down leaves. So we also want to focus on...
At the harbor in particular?
At the RV parks.
Oh, at the RV parks, okay.
Yes. So there's a lot of people who've had a lot of things stolen there. So we want to help with that issue, because people want to come stay there, but if they go online and read reviews that anything that is not inside,
sure,
that makes it challenging.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is these are people who don't live in the RV parks, who are coming into the RV parks and engaging in theft, it sounds like.
I don't know who's doing what to whom,
right,
but yes,
okay,
yes. And that's why, for example, we want to put security cameras up. That's why on this lot we're going to have gates so they close at night. You have a prompt to get in, and so people feel better about staying there.
Any communication with the Crescent City Police Department or Del Norte County Sheriffs about this?
No. I've spoken to the harbor quite a bit about it, and they certainly have worked with them on this, and it's been an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue.
Alex, is there anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with today that I didn't think to ask you about, or just any final thoughts for today?
No, I'm actually, the more I come here, the more I like it. I'll tell you that. This is an amazing area. I've met a lot of really good people, and for us, we really think we're going to be here for quite a while, and we'd love to stay here for quite a bit.
Alex Lemus of Renewable Energy Capital, thank you for being with us on Community Service and KFUG today, and we hope that you'll stay in touch, and we'll be able to continue to help our listeners know about what's going on with the harbor and the other things, particularly the housing issue, that you're working on here in Del Norte County.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll be back after all of this cool stuff.
You are listening to KFUG LP Crescent City, broadcasting to the masses at 101.1 FM or broadcasting to the NSA online at kfugradio.org.